Join us as we go beyond the pixels in the Gamer's Edge podcast, the show that takes you behind the scenes of video gaming. Each episode dives into the realms of gaming and esports, bringing you exclusive interviews with both rising stars and seasoned veterans, coaches, insightful commentators, and industry leaders. So whether you're an aspiring pro gamer, a dedicated fan, or simply curious about the inner workings of gaming and esports, grab your headset and join us on this thrilling adventure through the virtual arenas where victory, camaraderie, and endless adventure await.
What's going on, guys? Welcome into episode 3 of the Gamer's Edge podcast. I am joined today by an absolute legend. If you followed the Halo scene and competed at all, such as I did back in the day, everybody knows who Flamesword is. Michael, how are we doing today?
I'm doing well, and as you say that opening line, I'm thinking to myself, like, damn, so many people probably from the Halo era recognize me with short hair, barely any beard on my face and all that. So the people that were Halo players from back in the day, now seeing long hair, don't care flame sword, with a bit of more of a beard nowadays is a funny thought in my head. But I'm doing well, man. Doing well. Got my morning errands done. Got a couple more things to do in the evening, but we got the afternoon, freed up so we could join up and hang out and kick the gamer's edge.
Cool, I appreciate it. Of course, you have trimmed up a little bit since the optic beard nickname days. Uh,
Hmm.
but definitely got it going on up top. I've got mine, of course, in a ponytail as well. Feel like
Nice.
as you get older, you kind of just stop. You're like, I could go get my hair cut, but who cares? I'm
See,
gonna let it go.
for me, it was actually the other way around. I never grew it out during high school, and as soon as I joined Optic back in, was it? Oh, 2011, 2012, maybe. Um, I started growing it out then. Because at that point I had kind of a collarbone injury, and so I had two things going. I said, one, I'd keep growing my beard out until I got back into shape. And then since I was growing the beard out and getting into shape, I was like, well, eating right, working out, all this stuff helps to accumulate, better hair growth and all that fun stuff. So I was like, well, since we're only doing videos and we're inside the house being gamers, might as well grow out my hair now since I missed it out there in high school. And so now I'm in a tricky spot being that I'm 33 years young, where I don't know where I want to go now. I believe around 34, 35, I'm going to cut the hair, but I don't know what I'm going to do because now I've had the long hair for so long.
Yeah, I understand that. I got a buddy right now. He's was in the same boat. He never grew his hair out, and now it's like halfway down his back, and he just put it into dreadlocks. And he's like, now,
Oh,
now I don't know what to do. Now, if I decide I don't want dreadlocks, I got to shave it all off. I'm like,
that was actually one of the other reasons I actually started growing it out. My buddy had dreadlocks, and I was like, damn, that looks actually pretty dope. Like, I might want to try that, but I've never gone to that edge now. Maybe we do that before I cut it off completely, but I also feel that it's a lot harder to cut your hair into a certain style if you do the dreads, because it's a lot easier just to buzz it all off
yep.
versus untangle and all that fun stuff. So we got to see which route I go for for sure. Oh,
Now, you
there
did
you go.
mention the collarbone, getting into shape, and everything like that. And real quick, before we even go, I got to know male, female, name.
Female, this is Chloe Baloney right here. She is a Chinese crested. If you ever seen 101 Dalmatians, the old school one, Cruella de Vil's dog that's half naked and has like little spots and some hair.
Yeah,
That's this breed. It's a Chinese crested. She had three brothers and two sisters. They all came out completely naked, and she was the only one with hair. And I was like, this is the one we need.
nice. Yeah, I have mine actually over there in my daughter's room right now. It's like, yeah, you gotta go in here for just a little bit. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
still in the puppy phase. Uh,
Oh, nice.
yeah, we unfortunately we lost our main dog Jackson. He was 14 when we lost him, and so we have, of course, a 4-year-old, and I've always wanted my kids to grow up with animals like I did. So we did reach
Hmm.
out. We got another puppy, 6 months old, and oh man, the other day she destroyed the couch. So that's now on the to do list is to go buy another couch.
Sounds about right. The what is it? It's like the 3 weeks, 6 weeks, 6 months, and then I think right before the 9 months in the puppy stages is like when you get their most chaotic little spurts, and then after all those little time periods, it seems to be a lot simpler. I remember this one was a headache. She's a COVID baby too, so she has issues with some other dogs at times, but she loves humans. Like if she sees humans with other dogs, she will maneuver her way past the dogs to get to that other human so that she claims the human. And then she starts kind of just scratching at their legs to be like, hey, pick me up. I'm small. Like, you got to pick me up. And it's just funny. She's got a funny personality for sure.
Nice. Well, jump us back on track to where I was going with that original question before that cuteness jumped in your lap there. Uh, you mentioned eating right and everything like that. Man, you've of course have been advocating for this, sharing tips online for. I saw the oatmeal recipe, and I actually told the
Ooh.
wife we're supposed to go to the store in the next couple of days. And I was like, all right, we got to add this to the list because I'm gonna try that out. What sparked that in you to say, hey, I'm gonna start taking better care of myself, and also to tie into that a little bit, I did read online all the training and everything you do with your hands specifically for the response while you're gaming. What
Hmm.
what kind of
Well,
sparked all that?
what sparked my interest into the whole health and wellness field would be my own body. At 24, basically before I joined Optic as well, and how I said like, "Hey, I'm growing my beard out, and I'm not cutting it until I get into shape." I went through a scare. I want to say around 21 through 23. I did, I did at the end of my high school, my senior year, the whole working out to get muscles to, make the girls like you and all that stuff, like most people do during high school. And then after that, I got more obsessive, I want to say, about it all, about like the whole training, scheme behind everything, and basically train like an athlete versus work out. Like when you're training, it seems that you get more results and you're not pinpointing like, oh, I'm training to get, a 15-inch bicep, because that's just working out. Like you really don't train to get a certain size bicep, but you do train in order to push more weight, do specific movements and whatnot. And all that kind of accumulated. But during my time of growing up in high school at GNC, there used to be a section behind the counter that had a key, and you couldn't get into it unless you asked the associate or the manager at the store to grab it for you, and then they hit the sale button on it, and then you pay for it, and you go home with it. And a lot of those products, obviously, I'm sure back in the day were not FDA regulated as well as they should be, and I don't even know if FDA is the best regulator out there. I'm sure there's a couple other ones that people tend to look at more, kind of more from a holistic approach. But I believe one of those products messed up my internals. And around 21 through 24, I learned that I got erosive gastrosis and esophagusitis something. But basically, were the worst forms of GERD. My friends would remember me as the person who could eat two boxes of pizza, two pies of pizza, could eat pounds and pounds of food in a sitting, and an hour, 2 hours later, come back and just do it all over again. There was a point during the Halo LAN network era where all the LANs were at the Halo for the LAN network, and my friends noticed. They're like, "Yo, Mike, you just literally took like a spoon of rice and you're done eating. What's going on here?" And I was like, I have no idea. Like I took a bite and was just maximal full, and I was like, this just feels weird. And it probably went on for 6 months until I finally went to the doctor, where I got diagnosed with those things I just said. I did an endoscopy, so that was also trippy too, because it was the first time I ever went under anesthesia, and they gave me the anesthesia. And they're like, "Hey, count backwards from 10 to 1." But once you get to 7, skip all the way to 3, 2, 1. So I'm like 10, 9, 8, 7, 3, and that's the last thing I remember. And then I'm getting rolled through doors, and I'm looking at the doctors and everything. I'm like, are we gonna go do this or what? Like the anesthesia is not working. They're like, oh, you're already done. We did it already. And I was like, dude, what? Like there is this entire time lapse timeline that is just eradicated from my thought, and I have no conscience of it, which is just wild to me. But then I found out I had those things that I said that I was diagnosed with, and so health became so much more important to me because at the same time they said that my ethnicity, Portuguese people who get these type of things and whatnot, tend to get stomach tumors down in the middle of their life. And so I was like, pause, like this stuff's not happening to me. Like I'm changing my life right now. And I guess it got to the point where it was like enough enough. I knew that I could put down food, and I knew that I was a skinny kid that allowed me to put down food where, most of us when we're young are like, I'm unstoppable, either from strain, from eating food, from exercising, from whatever it may be. We feel invincible, and it's because we just recovered so much better. The vitamin count, mineral count in our body is most likely a lot higher than it is as we get older, as you take care of yourself. And so at that moment, I just knew that I had to take care of myself. And then it all starts internally, right? This is our temple. You could work out, anyone could do that. It's really, really easy, but to put the proper nutrition, put yourself underneath the proper diet, understanding that overindulging is kind of the big vice that you want to avoid, and put that all together from taking multivitamins, fish oil, endocrine vitamins, all that stuff, because nowadays our crops and all that stuff just aren't as nutrient dense as they used to be. And so to me, it's no questions asked that supplementation with a whole food diet is the way to go. And basically since 20, I want to say, I'm 33 now, it's just been all about that. So when it comes, like, if there's anything I know more than Halo, it's the human body, it's biohacking it, um finding new recipes, which the one you brought up, the overnight oats, that one is a banger. You could do so many things with it. I use frozen fruit for it, but you could use fresh fruit, which I know would probably have a greater taste of freshness. But I really can never find wild blueberries. They're their own
Oh
type
yeah,
of
yeah.
blueberries. They're 2x the antioxidant count of a normal blueberry. And so for me, I get Weidman's frozen. It's like a 3-pound bag, and I'm just like, oh, this works. And for some reason, I also think the liquid of the frozen blueberries with I use a kefir. Still don't know which way to say it, or goat milk with it. But I feel that since they're basically frozen berries, the liquid just makes everything a lot cooler as it like thaws out. But yeah, the one you all are about to try is incredible. Definitely make sure you have some chocolate, banana, peanut butter, almond butter. I used almond butter, but it works great. And I've been adding almond butter to like my base recipe for the past 2 weeks now that I've been doing that, and I absolutely love it. It's such an easy breakfast. Takes you 5 minutes or maybe even less at night to complete it. Put it in the fridge, and I mean, if you get mason jars even too, you could do it inside of mason jars. Cap
Oh,
those things
nice.
off, and then if you got 4 or 5 mason jars, you just line up one every day for the week. You make them all on a Sunday, and you're good to go. And the crazy thing about overnight oats that I've noticed is that the longer they're in the fridge overnight, like the more days and nights they go through, for some reason the taste just comes out better. Like obviously because everything is just
Yeah,
kind
meshing
of
together.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, it's just oh man, it's so good. Because usually I'm a smoothie person after the gym, but now I have this breakfast all the time that I've also even put my creatine in. Can't even taste it, like all these extra supplements that I put in it, and you just still taste the pure overnight oats, and it's just so good. It's even brought me the idea of potentially wanting to start a overnight oats business. But I would want to probably provide it to a more local scene versus a wider scene, because I would want to make sure that it's fresh every day and the contents within it are to my exact measurements for, again, right? Like I know nutrition, I know the amount of protein people should be taking in, fat, carbs, depending on what their lifestyles are. So I would want to make sure that I'm adjusting it properly for the people that are purchasing it.
Man, that's what's up. I've been taking just plain uh yogurt, non like additive yogurt, and putting
Okay.
a scoop of my oh man, I forget the brand, but it's the Nutter Butter flavor, like protein and stuff. And that's
Okay.
been my breakfast is plain yogurt with the protein powder mixed in. And it's been doing a great breakfast for me as well. And then
Mm-hmm.
I have been taking a burner, and it does
Okay.
have caffeine in it to I'm 38, so I need
Okay.
that extra pickup. Because of
You
course,
don't, you don't, but for now, we'll say that you do, but just know that you don't.
just,
With everything properly done, you could definitely, because at the end of the day, I don't know if you know, but like caffeine, what caffeine really does is just it suppresses your tiredness. I don't know if it's cells is the right word. But the things in your brain that are telling you that you're tired, what caffeine does is that it hops on those so that when it connects to your brain, the caffeine is there instead of that cell, atom, whatever it is that tells you that you're tired. And so since the caffeine is in between it and telling the brain receptor that, hey, this is caffeine, you're not tired, you just keep going with it. And that's usually where crashes come in. And that's where I've also noticed people, I want to say, gaining weight through caffeine because you have people who do like a black coffee is great, but then once you start adding the milk, the sugars, the caramel, the hazelnut, and you're just throwing all these things in there, that's when now you're telling your brain you're not tired, and then you're obviously probably tired, right? Like, if people are drinking coffee, it's usually because, hey, I'm tired, like, I need to pick me up. And then you add all those other sugars, and you're telling your brain you're not tired, but your body's really tired, and then you're spiking your insulin, your sugar levels to go to the moon, basically, with all that sugar, which then tends to make people seem to gain weight, and weight in the bad form of fat because muscle weighs more than weight. And some people, when they work out, they get scared. They're like, yo, the scale's not going down, but I feel great. It's like, be happy with what you feel like. Don't stress about what's on the scale because you're putting muscle on and muscle weighs more than fat. But you just want to make sure your fat keeps decreasing.
gotcha. Well, see, I actually did not know that about caffeine, so that's something I will definitely keep in mind going forward. So,
Also, I would never drink caffeine realistically past 2 o'clock because I believe it takes anywhere from 8 to 12 hours in your body to break down. So, say for example, you drink a cup at four, a cup of coffee, or take caffeine at anywhere after 3. So you go to bed at 10, 11, or 12, right? That's say you go to bed at 12, that's only 9 hours. So in your sleep, from the books I read, your body will still be breaking that caffeine, and because you're sleeping, you still have that caffeine that's still left over, telling the brain, "Hey, you're not tired." So now you're not receiving the best kind of sleep you could get.
yeah, your body's
Um,
not fully resting. That makes sense.
exactly. So that one, and then the other one that's important, and I think this goes across because caffeine is considered a drug, which is pretty crazy, but I mean makes sense. Uh, any like thing that alters your body or your mind, I should say. Another good rule of thumb that I've come to learn over the 13 years I've been doing all this is to always wait anywhere from 90 to 120 minutes before you ever consume anything. So, like, say you wake up, some people just drinking a cup of coffee makes them happy. So there is that component of mentality of like love and happiness that will, change the negative effects of some stuff, but you have to have such a strong mental will of positivity, I feel, where it's like me, like I know everything that was bad for me. Like I know when I go to a restaurant, people nowadays all afraid of canola oil and stuff like this. They're like, hey, you gotta stay away from the vegetable oils, the canola oils, those are like machine made. They go through 8, 9, 10, 20 million processes. Like it doesn't make sense. And I'll still go to a restaurant and then eat food that someone uses canola oil because I'm like, well, they're making it with love. Like there's love being made into this food. So there's just no way that it's going to be bad for me. Hey, we're alive. What you doing? Um, so yeah, so it's for the caffeine and all drugs. Even some of my vitamins, like the only vitamin I take off the rip in the morning is a probiotic, and then everything else I'm usually waiting 90 minutes minimum before I start consuming into my body.
I see. I wish my normal co-host, he would love this. He's actually made the switch over to vegan like 2 to 3 years ago. Uh,
Okay.
he was in a touring band and everything like that, so he ate fast food all the time and stuff like that from being out
Hmm.
on the road. So he got really out of shape. Uh, you know, upper 200s and stuff, and he's PB's 5'9", maybe.
Okay.
So
Damn.
he made the switch, and I mean he's down to upper, I want to say around 190, just
Nice.
in the 2 years hitting the gym, everything like that. He's been trying to convert me over to vegan as well. I just, of course, with 3 kids and a wife, I can't just jump on board
That's yeah,
and
that's hard.
yeah, that's been the hardest part is my wife's on board, but then when we try and like buy healthy, the kids are like, "Oh no, God,
Yeah,
this is flavorless." So
no,
it
100%.
yeah, so we've been trying to find the middle ground with stuff, and it's slowly been working.
I
Well,
like that. Now, vegan's a tough one, man. I've done it for 2 weeks before at a time. I'll never do it like straight. I guess I shouldn't say never. I could see maybe when I get older, I could potentially do it. But I do feel vegan does miss out on some stuff, depending on what your lifestyle is, I guess, realistically. Like me, powerlifting, like I don't think vegan's the best option because of how much harder it is for me, I would say, to consume all types of protein. Um, and nowadays, right? I mean, actually, throughout my whole life, I mean, at first it was like, oh, butter is bad for you, so we made margarine. And then it's like, wait a minute, butter is actually not bad for you. It's not the saturated fat, it's the trans fat that's bad for you. Oh, too much red meat's not good for you. And now we're seeing all these carnivore diets and all these benefits out of them. Um, and then even milk. Oh, milk's not good for you. You know what I mean? Like, gotta drink almond milk, oat milk, all these milks. And it's like, well, even though it's illegal and they still sell it, I guess, different ways, but raw A2 milk, which is really good for you. Most of the kefirs and milks like this, the way they, I guess, they get around selling them in the US is that they say that it's a dog and cat topper. Um, and those are actually usually the best milks for humans because of the probiotics and all the live culture and all that good stuff that's in them. Um, but it's interesting because now it's right, like that's what kind of pushed the vegan diet to be so popular a couple of years ago was that we went through that entire mess of hey, butters are bad to margin, no milk to the good milks, no red meat to the Beyond Meats, you know what I mean? And now we've learned that the Beyond Meats aren't the greatest meats, because at the end of the day, that's a processed, type of product as well. So it's like you just go for whole foods. So um I think again, going back to what I told you, I think everything is moderation. It's always never to indulge yourself. Kind of go with the seasons almost, you know what I mean? Like whatever crops come up during season of fall, those are the crops and vegetables and grains and all that stuff you should eat. And then everything changes with each season. And that's kind of how you should also change yourself because it's like you could still get the overall macros, which is something I don't count because I know my body so well. But yeah, every season, the harvest of what that season has to bring has everything, in my opinion, that a person needs.
well, I'm gonna tie all this in together here with another two-part question for you here.
I'm ready.
Now, being featured on Red Bull, being the first gamer featured on the Red Bull can, that was a huge recognition both in the gaming world and beyond that. Now, how did that opportunity impact your career and your personal brand? And how do you feel seeing guys like, I'm not sure if you watch the Call of Duty League or not, but you see guys like Beans and some of these guys up there on stage drinking monsters, uh, to try and get that rush. as they're playing instead of per se drinking water or something a little bit better for them?
I would say, I mean, it goes back to again moderation and understanding how to use it. If they're at home pounding them back, then it's like, hey, you gotta take a pause and you really gotta evaluate what you're doing to your body. How much caffeine you're pouring into it, how much sugar you're pouring into it, all while just sitting down. And yes, our CNS central nervous system is going to use most likely sugar in order for you to do everything you need for gaming, which is why I always tell people that if you want to work out while you're, in the midst of your season and all that, make sure it's more of a maintenance or a hypertrophy workout because you don't want to do anything that's crazy endurance killer and you don't want to do heavy weight because both of those things will attack your central nervous system. Like you're shocking that when you're lifting heavy weight and you don't want to shock that. And then that's also the main component of gaming. That when you sit down and game now, it's like you feel fogginess because you just burnt it out trying to lift 400, 500, 600 pounds. Um, Even though I was sponsored by Red Bull, there was a proper, I think that's maybe the cool thing about being sponsored by Red Bull is that they had their own high performance, athlete camp and doctors and all that stuff. So you really got to learn how to use Red Bull in your sport, in your environment of competition. Um, and so with, Red Bull, kind of how it has caffeine, same thing with how I told you, right? Like, hey, if I could drink it before 3 o'clock, then I will, for a tournament weekend. There's going to be some little things that you could kind of stretch, but you don't want to stretch them too early on, as in like if you're in a 3-day tournament you don't want to be drinking the caffeine on those first 2 days past 3 o'clock, where then you're not going to get the quality sleep that you need at night to move into the next day, right? So it's again all about balance, understanding how to do it, making sure when you wake up, you're getting immediate constant movement of just forward movement, backwards movement. If you want to walk backwards on the treadmill, like I enjoy. But you really want to do 10 to 15 minutes of as soon as you wake up, you're just in a forward motion so that your body understands like, all right, we're rolling now. Like we're awake. We're not like trying to go back to sleep or anything, and we have a mission to complete. Um, so in my opinion, you get that good night's rest. You get a good, maybe beginning hour of your day. If you want to go work out, as simple as it is, you can do an hour walk, but just making sure that the first 10, 15 minutes are forward motion, followed up with some exercise, and then a nice breakfast. Drinking that Red Bull from noon to 3 o'clock is going to help you. The caffeine's going to give you that boost. Um, of kind of like mental clarity, um, and it definitely will help you out. But I know like not to call beans out directly, but it's like certain people like that probably want to take a closer look at how they're doing it, and making sure they're taking the proper steps, protocols beforehand so that they could actually maximize it. Because I'm sure you know how it is nowadays. Kids is like, "Yo, drink this so you can get cracked and like you won't miss a shot and
Yep,
all that."
yep,
And the placebo effect is a real thing, right? Like if Michael Jordan is telling me like, yo, if I drink the Space Jam water, like I'm going to be as good as him, like that going back to how I said like I go to out to go eat, and even though I know they use canola oil, I know they're also making it with love. So then again, it goes back to kind of that
that
mentality.
mental, yep.
Exactly, where like you shift gears, which is crazy and completely possible, right? There's studies about the placebo effect
Oh yeah.
and how they worked and all that stuff. So the mind is definitely a crazy thing. Um, but I definitely think the way some players do it that I've seen over my entire career, from playing, from being an influencer, from now being a esports or owner, that there's many different ways to do it. Like one of my players last year ended up getting diabetes. Now, people have tough environments that they grow up in and stuff like that, but there's still things you could do to avoid that stuff. You know what I mean? Um, and so he's someone that I try to always, chat with them and give them some pointers and whatnot. Because it's like the other big thing that gamers do is they like to kind of like just jump into the game. I remember when I was a teen, I would just wake up and start
Yeah,
playing, and I
get
wouldn't
in it
do
right
any.
away.
Exactly. And so then all of a sudden now you're eating right before you're going to bed, right? And one of a good method for people, all listeners that are listening to ever apply into your life is the 3-2-1 rule. 3 hours, 3 hours before bed, you stop eating. 2 hours before bed, you stop drinking liquids. And 1 hour before bed, you no screen time. So read a book, go do an activity, talk with your spouse, your children, take the dog out for a walk, rearrange something in your home, uh, get a pen and paper down, journal your day, what you're grateful for, um, to-do list for the next day, whatever it may be. But for an hour, stay away from the screen, right? And then it'll kind of even show you yourself what kind of mental capacity you have. Because if you can't, for that last hour of your day before you head to bed, if you can't make it to bed without reaching for your phone, unless you're like, if you're grabbing your phone for an alarm, okay, whatever. But if it's like you can't go to bed an hour before bed without going to social media or any of this stuff, and that kind of that's a hole in your life, and you have to like be aware of that and be like, whoa, like enough's enough, right? Like,
Yeah.
let me remove this, and then it goes back to the whole blue light with your eye to make sure you get proper optimal sleep. And so a lot of things that I've learned definitely from day one of health and wellness, of how I got into it all, isn't how I approach everything nowadays, because you learn, right? The same thing with my competitive years, my pro years, of me winning championships, is started an amateur, then semi-pro, then pro, then champion. So it's like obviously everything takes time. But the great thing about nowadays is that, I mean, we got the chat GBTs, you got all this content from everyone from left to right in the world, popping things out. So there's just so many resources for you to find that voice that you resonate with, that makes it a lot simpler for you to understand.
Well, you did mention going forward earlier, and
Hmm.
that forward momentum has carried you now. Again, you talked about it earlier, from being a player, being one of the original founding members for Status Quo, to then joining Optic, coaching Optic, and now restarting Status Quo and coming up. And now, of course, you are a full fledged organization. You're fielding an Apex Legends team. You have a championship under the Halo uh, free for all. There's potential for you posting a team, instead of free for all, a 4-man team there in Halo. As well as we've been seeing you grind out content here, especially here on Apex as well.
Who
Uh,
would love it?
so that forward momentum, can you share, that main vision behind Status Quo and how it differentiates between other esports, and what's been
100%.
driving you to reach out and elevate that next group of potential legends like yourself to that next level?
100%. Yeah, the vision for Status Quo is $100 million organization I want to create within the next 10 years. I want to be kind of the first one to actually understand how to operate the esports scene as a business. I think a lot of people that came into it, obviously, it's always like, yo, get the bag, get the bag, get the bag. And now we're seeing that the people who got the bag has caused organizations to kind of collapse. Um, and I want to avoid all of that, because I want to make sure even when I'm done with this, it's still up and running without me. Like when end of my career, when I go into something else after 10 years, I want to make sure that something was created within status quo that gives security to everyone who joins it for the many years to come. A true organization. I think where we differ from many other people is that you have a lot of money coming in, trying to start organizations and thinking that just because they have a lot of money, they could pick up all these players, but then they don't understand really the content and the player side of it, and they're just giving people salaries to play, and then they're like, yo, we're not getting a return on this, and then they get upset, and then things crumble. I think what differs over here at SQ is that I've done every single thing you can do in gaming. I was a competitor, I was a champion, I was a influencer for Optic Gaming, by far probably the biggest esports organization out there, definitely in North America. And then we ended up selling, right? We all lived in Chicago at the Optic Scuff House, and then we sold and we all moved down to Texas. So I was part of a company that sold for $20 million, right? And that was 2017, so it's been 5 years. So right, there's inflation and everything nowadays. I'm a pretty analytical person, so even though I say 100 million and people are like, yo, that's freaking insane. It's like, well, it is, but 5 years ago to now, that 20 million that got invested is probably the same thing as almost 100 million with inflation and all that, and with how money works. And so I don't think it's a crazy far-fetched idea. I think one of the things that we do is that we're there's orgs that have millions of dollars, and then we're here with thousands, probably, I would say. And our exposure with our tweets and stuff like this are put out way more than other people's stuff, where I'm seeing people that have more money than our organization at the moment putting out, their videos and their tweets, and it's getting no traction. And then it's us getting traction, one, because SQ is a legacy name. There's a lot of old school people out there that remember the Halo 3 days, and they're like, yo, I remember Status Quo. And I've had a ton of these people come up to me in person, just randomly bumping into them at different locations throughout the US kind of this past 2 years, since we're only in year number 2 right now, the organization as an official esports org. Definitely looking to do community. I think also what we have going on for us that not many people have is that, my 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 family is Optic Gaming, you know what I mean? Like Hex is not only a brother to me, but also a mentor. He chopped it up with me before I started the SQ org and gave me the blueprint of Optic Gaming. And so like, Mike, obviously like you want to follow this, but you want to add your own twist. And my twist being health and wellness, the whole fitness kind of scene. I'm also a daredevil, so the whole lifestyle culture is another big thing for us. And then my big thing that I think I do differently, way differently than other organizations, is that other organizations just want to win right away. And that's great and all, but I'm more of wanting to build a story, right? Like, so HCS Fort Worth is our next event coming up September 1st through September 3rd. And I have the decision to either, pick up one of the teams that are going to fly there for free, or pick up an amateur team. And so I've decided now to potentially not even do a team for Fort Worth, but re-pick up our free-for-all player from last year, Bobster, who won us to the World Free-for-all Championship, because, again, everyone comes from a different environment, so they receive and kind of project information differently. But we had a story with Bob. He was part of the 4v4 team. Maybe the free-for-all stuff brings up actually a layer of excitement that's like, you know what, like I've like if he wins another world championship in free for all, there's no question that this kid is dominant. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
you can't just like it's not RNG at that point if he's doing it back to back. And so then maybe that enjoyment pops up out of somewhere, pops up from within, that he's like, yo, I want to take this four stuff now serious. And now you got other people seeing that he's won free for all back to back, just like, Pistola, just like who else is there? Karma, Strong Side. Man, so many free for all legends that ended up being just incredible at Forge, you know what I mean? And Pistola being a top 3 player of all time, it's like this kid's only 18, 19 years old. So it's like he still has a long gaming career ahead of him.
Oh yeah.
Started as an MNK player switched over to controller for Halo, but he would definitely probably be more dominant on many other games with M&K, but just so he could always play Halo, he does more controller now. I know he's waiting for X Defiant to come out because he won the one tournament that they threw during the beta. But that's like one avenue that, I'm thinking about. We have the Apex team almost just jumped into Fortnite with the player in the LCQ or duo in the LCQ. I don't know if that's 100% going to go through. I'll definitely know by tomorrow since I believe the tournament starts tomorrow and it's a 3-day tournament, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That would be absolutely massive for us. And if it doesn't go through, then it doesn't go through. They'll be fine without us. We'll be fine without them. And we just keep moving forward to creating content. Right now, we're in August. My goal starting in August was to make sure that SQ was able to pump out 100 pieces of content, either in long form or short form. I believe we've been posting 2 videos up on the SQ Instagram besides the past 3 days. So starting today, I'll probably have to put 3 up every day for the next 5 days in order to catch up to the 2 a day kind of thing. And then we always come out with a video on Monday, Friday, and Saturday. Monday's kind of a check the status, kind of something that updates the community on what's going on the SQ world or what's to come, the week ahead. Friday is again, right, a part of me, the whole Quojo, which is health and wellness, fitness, and nutrition, whatever it may be. But I started Optic Strength when I was with Optic, and there was just no way I wasn't going to create something for Status Quo that kind of talked about it as well. And now that I have so much more knowledge of it, it feels a lot smoother, and I feel more confident in all the things that I put out versus the days that I was on Optic because I was still going through that learning phase. And anyone going through the learning phase, I think it's just even if you are meant, do not be afraid to post things because you will still, and as you post things, you will still continue to learn. Oh, what can I do better? How can I post better? Which will ultimately allow you to become a better person.
Yeah, and you never know who's paying attention, whose life you could potentially change.
100%. Yeah. And yeah, I guess yeah, it literally goes back to how I said like there's so much resources on the internet nowadays that if you could find the voice that you resonate with the most, and I'm sure just us as humans, we always think, oh, like no one's gonna want to listen to my voice, or a lot of us probably think like that at times. Just do it because yeah, it's Tom Syndicate, Pro Syndicate. I think one of the greatest things he ever told me I would always watch his vlogs, would hang out with him when he comes to the Scuff House. And it's like, dude, don't you get tired of like showing the airport all the time? He's like, a friend told me, Mike, that what happens in one of those airport vlogs, if a new viewer watches it and that new viewer never went to the airport or whatnot and knows what's inside of an airport or inside of an airplane and all this stuff, that I'm providing them a new experience that they've never seen before. And then if they do end up going on an airplane, they now have some knowledge of like how the whole system works. And I was like, wow, that's thinking about the micro level, which at the end of the day is the most important because as long as you take care of the small things, the bigger things all follow along.
Definitely. Now, you mentioned everything kind of falling along. We've talked about the 5 to 10 year plan for Status Quo. With everything falling along the way that it has been in esports, especially now with virtual reality and altered reality, almost kind of starting to creep its way into competitive. Where do you see the future of esports in, say, 10 years?
I definitely see VR and augmented reality being a thing. Thankfully, we have the number one North American VR team. They play a game called EVA, Esports Virtual Arenas. After H, I believe is the actual the game, but EVA is the publisher and developer of the game. And the cool thing about this is you can only play it at their facilities. There's like 30 or 35 of them over in the Europe, France area. They just had a massive tournament at the Twitch Con in Germany or whatnot, their finals. They have 2 leagues running in France. They have their Pro League, which has only 6 teams in it. and then they have the lower league that any team could play in it, I believe. Um, and in North America, there's only one facility, and it's in Flower Mound, Texas. And my team has now won the past three tournaments in a row. First was a 2v2, which was the first two kids I picked up. And then it was a 4v4 tournament, and I picked up two other kids, which they won. And then the third tournament was a 3v3, which was nice because one of our players ended up visiting Canada to see his family. So we didn't have to deal with like who's going to be the third playing because we know the two
All
main
fell
ones are
into
always going to play.
place.
Exactly, yeah, like you were saying, so that was actually funny. And they ended up winning that tournament. So we have two kids that have won three tournaments in a row, one kid who's won two in a row, and the one who went to Canada is currently one in a row. And we're waiting for there's supposed to be a big tournament, like $10,000 tournament coming here to Flower Mound, Texas, hopefully September, October. But I'm looking forward to that one. And then I do see VR definitely being a huge part, especially if, for example, like the facilities that we play at and the game that we play at after H at the EVA facilities, if they're able to create more of these, and I know they cost a lot, it costs anywhere from $1 million to $2.5 million to run, but if they're able to really lock it down, figure out the Dave and Buster's model behind it, and even apply augmented reality to it, where it's like, say you're sitting down and now you have a mini game before you play while you watch people play on it, where you're seeing things on the field and whatnot. So I know there's a lot there, and it's definitely the future. I mean, especially with all the AI coming out now too. You get like I'm sure you've seen the TikTok live chatters or live streamers that it's all AI and it's like, oh, thank you. Thank
Yeah.
you. And it's like it's all Futurama stuff, like things that grew up, or at least me, I grew up watching. Even what was it, the Jetsons?
Yeah, the Jetsons.
Uh yeah, the Jetsons. It's like so much things that I see now just kind of remind me of things that I saw in that cartoon way back in the day. And obviously, that was all the way back in the day to now seeing it in reality, which is crazy. But I do think VR, AR will be a huge, huge component of esports moving forward because I also think it, like for example, the game that my guys play, I think it's probably one of the only games out there right now that could actually question, is it a sport? Because the game currently caps you at 6 miles per hour. So if you run 7 miles per hour in real life, 8, 10, the game will only allow you to run six in the game unless they go into it and say, hey, let's keep this uncapped, which then would get crazy because then it's like you're not just getting gamers, you're getting athletes in there too. Because like, what happens is like, yo, we need a sprinter because like, no matter what, if we get in the middle first and we start the engagement and we get the first frag, and then it becomes like this lop or snowball effect of things. Like, you want now a fast person. You like, it's not just about, hey, I can shoot really well or I have really good game tactics. It's like, hey, like you need physicality, and we had some Optic gaming members play the game, New York Subliners. We've even had people that have been on the Ninja Warrior TV show, and Carson Williams, FC Dallas players, all come in and play it. And as they play more, you see that everyone's game skill picks up, but the physical aspect is so there. Like, people are saying, "Oh, my quads hurt from all the crowd shooting, going up
Yeah.
and down over like behind boxes, from moving." Then you also have your body's trusting you with these goggles on your head that everywhere you're running and walking to, that you're not going to hit anything physically in real life. And so I remember the first time I was playing Eva, I was just sweating from like I'm pretty sure it was my body, like, because I wasn't tired after it, but I was a pool of sweat, and I was assuming it was because like I would take a step to my right, I would take a step to my left, but my body didn't really know where I was going. We only knew what was in the game, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think it's for sure the future. I think it'll be just like Nick Merckx once said. He was like, like gaming, like a lot of people could game, not everyone can be great at it, but it's not like you need to bench press or you need to run on a treadmill every day in order to be great at gaming. Does it help you long-term gaming and your longevity as a gamer? Yes, no questions about it. But to be good, right? You just have to really put the time in it. And if you're willing to beat up your body for 3 years of sitting down for X amount of hours of putting in those hours and punishment theory, then yeah, you could come out really good, like many of us have come out. Um, and then even how he compared golf, like, hey, like Tiger Woods doesn't need to bench press, row, or do any of this. Like the skill level of golf is very high, which you could say is like the same thing with gaming. But then all these other benchmarks, endurance, strength, aren't needed. But with Eva and virtual reality, I could see it turning into that where it's like, hey, you need endurance, you need physical ability, you need skill, and then whatever those last two benchmarks would be able to then finally be able to be like, hey, like esports is a real sport. Like enough of this chatter of like, is it not? Is it so? We know it's a high level competition, just like your chess, just like your golf, but then to finally be there and be like, wait a minute, like you need to put an hour four time you need to put 4 hours in 4 to 5 hours a week of working out in order to make sure that you could remain at the top level of this game.
Well, I do want to say thank you. We've been going for almost an hour now. I know our preliminary talks, we said 20, 30 minutes potentially. So I can't thank you enough. And I still got a million questions here. So, but I won't keep you up. I'm actually going to give you two questions here, and you don't have to answer both. You can pick which one you wish to answer, and
Okay.
this will be the closing. Uh,
Okay.
you mentioned FC Dallas. Now, do you believe traditional sports and esports can start coexisting, especially when we see things like the NBA 2K League starting up, partnering with the NBA? Now, can that potentially integrate more into some of the other games that we've seen? The other question I have is very, very, I guess you could say generic, but what qualities do you believe are essential for someone aspiring to be a pro gamer or potentially even an esports coach?
So an esports coach, what skills you would need for that? That's pretty tough because I only did really one event of coaching for Call of Duty. And for Halo, I wouldn't even consider myself that great of a coach for Halo, to be honest, because my competitive side was so much into it that when I would see some of the players making mistakes or like in my head, I'd be like, yo, you just did that right, but now go do this. And they do something else would kind of eat me alive inside. And I would get stuck as a spectator. Um, but as a player, what I definitely always wanted from the coach was just specifics in power ups. Nowadays in Halo, the power ups have like timers and all that, but the coach still helps with them. Um, and I would say someone who could create an icebreaker, because for the most part, the team already puts in so much hard work that that coach really has to have a positive personality or an outgoing personality that could, break the ice like when teams lose and you see it in the live streams that they're just all quiet, they're not looking at each other. Like you need that person to be able to, break the ice and bring you all back together because at the end of the day it's like everyone's just salty that they lost that one
Yeah.
game, but the job's not done yet, like you still have to lose technically two more before you get knocked out. So like reset. And I think that's in my opinion, what I would always want is that's what I would look for in a coach. Now, to your first question, I do think integration would be a lot better just because it goes back to like my starting days as a gamer. Like people are always like, "Oh, you guys will never be mainstream. You'll never be mainstream." We were like, "We don't want to be mainstream. We are so cool with just being on the internet." And the reason for that is because most of us gamers are nerds at the same time. We just knew that the internet was the future. So it's like we don't need to be on TV if TV disappears in 5 years. You know what I mean? Like we're cool with being on the internet because we know the trajectory of where the internet's going to bring places or bring people and bring, businesses and just different, sectors of activities from now AI and all this other stuff. But I do think I think it'd be exciting to see a little bit more of an integration. I know they have like the NBA 2K like Dallas Mavericks team, but it would be cool if they present that to the community because right with Call of Duty and these leagues or these franchise leagues, the goal was that like, hey, like New York becomes like a populated area, just like they're fans of the New York Knicks and Yankees, those people will go to the Yankees and Knicks games. And now maybe, they'll come to the esports games. I feel we need a little bit more integration, as in like maybe halftime shows now is like an exhibition of like the Dallas Mavericks 2K team versus like the Boston team.
That'd be
And
awesome.
you move them around. That way, again, we're so cool at being on the internet, and everyone that's already at the stadium watching the basketball game is going to open up their phones, probably take a picture, which then goes to the internet, but apply them to the main audience of for the main sport, right? Like NBA. So throw them at that, even though gaming numbers are showing to be a lot higher than a lot of sports. But do that because then it's right for the most part, sports events, it's people wanting to go out and drink with their friends and stuff. Like
Yeah.
this straight up, that's what it is as I've come to realization. But now, right, like you have those people taking posts, and if they have, little cousins, nephews, nieces, daughters, the sons, and all this stuff, and like, wait, what? They had a little gaming tournament go on. Now they get excited, right? And that's at the end of the day the biggest sell that you always want, right? You want the young generation to come in because then if they enjoy it so much, what comes after them is them just the way that I'm Portuguese and my dad loves soccer, football, and I only know anything about soccer football because of him. And it's now kind of like in my DNA. Even though I don't watch that much, it's like if I ever go back home to New Jersey to visit my family and they're watching the game, I'm watching the game with him, right? Like I'm doing that activity that as a kid he taught me to kind of jump into. Same thing for gaming, right? Like I said, you have a halftime show of a quick little 5-10 minute exhibition down there instead of the cheerleaders from time to time, or you figure out time slots with the cheerleaders. Even the cheerleaders going around them while the jumbotron's catching the game, and so like you get like an entire show. Then I think you're blowing the doors off the hinges, and then like literally the sky is it's beyond the sky. Yeah, you could head to the moon at that point.
Yeah. And Mark Cuban, when you eventually watch this, make sure make sure you credit Flamesword for this idea.
You know it, man.
Well, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on to the Gamers Edge podcast and talking with me for again a lot more than we discussed. So I can't thank you enough for sticking with me and talking with me for all this time. Uh,
Got you, my man.
and for those who don't know who Flamesword is, say if you are the younger generation, make sure you go look up those MLG days and everything like that. Make sure you look up those Halo 3 highlights and everything. And good luck coming up. See that man's gonna pull out the championship.
I'm
Say
gonna have to
I,
clean it now later, but a little
but
too, a little oldie.
hey,
I've been around the block. We
you
still
still
we
got the
still be
skins
putting
in the
people
game.
down.
So yeah,
Oh yeah.
of course, good luck coming up here. No matter if you decide to put the 4 or you decide to go with the free for all. Good luck coming up in Fort Worth. Good luck in, I believe, the Gauntlet series is where your Apex team is heading to next. So good
Yep.
luck there with those gentlemen with that. And of course, good luck with you with the content game and everything that's going on. And I'm loving seeing Status Quo coming back to life and man, trajectory to the moon. Uh, can't wait to continue to see this rise. And again, just thank you for coming on with us.
Appreciate it, Cody. And then everyone watching, be sure to follow SQ at Team Status Quo on Twitter, on Instagram. Every follow matters. And I want to thank you all, and all y'all have a good day.
Cool. Till next time, guys. Peace.